On Tuesday afternoon, the fate of a company that has given work to generations was sealed.
It's just been announced that Tyneside shipbuilder Swan Hunter has lost the order for a £170 million helicopter carrier for the Royal Navy. Throughout the campaign to secure the contract, Swans had warned that the ship was vital for the survival of the yard and more than 2,000 workers. But this afternoon, the government announced that
Swan Hunter has called in the receivers 2 days after losing a Royal Navy order for a helicopter carrier. The order was vital to the yard's future. Now it's feared all the 2,200 jobs at Swan Hunter could be lost.
The minor situation, the shipyards and the threat of our health service is a good a place as any to start. I bring the support of the miners. I wish you well. And fight like hell for your jobs, because you're worthy of it.
Swan Hunters has been in being for 130 years on the River Tyne. Within them 130 years, we've built 2,700 ships. Of them 2,700, only 400 of them have been Ministry of Defence vessels. The rest of them have been liners, container boats, refrigeration boats, general cargo, tankers, state-of-the-art technology, barge ships, aircraft carriers. So Swan Hunters, from that point of view, yes, they've got every reason to be proud. You know, nobody builds ships within the British Isles as good as Swan Hunters. And, you know, that can be proven by, you just got to look at those ships that are still afloat around the world. Predominantly, the large majority of them have been built on Tyneside.
To build a ship is in fact to build something special. Everyone who builds a ship puts something of themselves into it. You may come across guys mention a ship in passing and say, oh yes, I built that, it's my ship.
You never see a big liner or a big cargo boat come up the Tyne now. You never see it because all the sheds are pulled down, the warehouses, everything's all finished. They're building marinas, aren't they? Marinas there, Walker, St. Peter's. No Shields is going to be the next marina. That's finished. They're going to deal with the fish quay. The fish quay will be gone. There's going to be all marinas up and down. That's my point, speaking for myself.
1 in 8, 18. 2 in 8, 28. 6 in 8, 68. Downing Street, number 10.
I think the government was set out to do it. I think the government set out
to close
to smash the yards and the heavy industries up here.
Well, I hope that it will survive because historically speaking, this town, this area has had shipbuilding here for well over 100 years at least, like, you know. And it would seem a shame when you talk about an island nation not having at least warships, if not merchant ships. And it's about time the merchant fleet all over the world was replaced, you know.
And now the end is near, and so I face the final curtain. My friends.
Well, I'm the Member of Parliament for Wallsend, and I've been the Member of Parliament since April of 1992, when the general election was held and I got elected. My predecessor was someone called Ted Garrett, who retired for that general election. So I've only been a Member of Parliament for nearly 18 months now. And of course, one of the main issues that I've been involved in has been the campaign to keep shipbuilding alive on the Tyne. and to ensure a future for Swan Hunters. I think one of the lessons that we've learned is that we've got to keep the campaign alive and in the minds of the public. The worst thing that can happen is for the public to forget that the campaign is continuing and that shipbuilding is continuing on the Tyne. And so all of our efforts since May the 11th, when they lost the order for this helicopter carrier, and from May the 13th, when the company went into receivership, have been devoted not just to putting pressure on government ministers, who at the end will make the decisions that will either save Swans or sink Swans. We've also been trying to capitalise and maximise the public support for the campaign. It clearly was there very early on, and there's a lot of anger and frustration at what the government had actually done. But we've got to continue that, and as we move now into the autumn, into the winter of 1993, it will get more and more difficult to ensure that we maintain that level of support.
I think we learned tremendously over the last 10 years with regard to how you have to approach a government that is pretty antagonistic with regard to the shipbuilding industry. In this particular government, this Tory government, has been that all of the time it's been in office. If we learned anything over the last 10 to 12 years with regard to the Tory party, that they don't meet and take well large demonstrations. Large demonstrations have two effects. One, a positive one where it gets you the media coverage. But the second and most important one, it denies you the opportunity to speak to Tory MPs or other MPs on a one-to-one basis.
Oh yeah, it's got to be a good thing, we've got to do something about it, haven't we? They don't know what they can do about it, they don't know what's going to change the government's minds or whatever, but let's hope it can, eh?
I'm not sure with the present economic climate whether the government's going to take any notice, but I think it's better than sitting on your backside and waiting to see. It's better to get out and try and do something about it. But I have reservations about the response. You know, you look back to the Jarrah March and you wonder if it really got people anywhere, but at least it makes us people aware of what's happening and that everybody hasn't forgotten about it.
Well, marching, I think, does have actually a very important role to play. I know it's perhaps become unfashionable in our sort of modern world to go on demonstrations, to go on marches. But I think we can learn the lessons of the Jarrah March, which in a very effective way took the message throughout the country that there were parts of England who are suffering massive levels of unemployment.
Well, hopefully it should stir something up in Parliament, so it's about time they got their finger out, I think, got something done about it. It's otherwise, because of Swan Hunter, because this place is just going to be a ghost town, was then. It's going to basically just turn into a ghost town.
Well, at the heart of the workforce at Swan Hunters, those who are left, along with the shop steward and trade union movement, we welcome all of the delegates here today who are marching for the right to work, because that's what it's all about, the right to work.
If you give the struggle up, then there is no light. But as far as my committee is concerned, and as far as the workforce are concerned, they're totally committed to the survival of Swan Hunters and to take that argument, that fight forward to wherever we've got to take it, whether it be the British government, whether it be the European Parliament.
The problem we've got is that in meetings we've had with the European Commissioner, who's Karel van Meert, who's a Belgian socialist, who's the commissioner responsible, he's been sympathetic, but he's got to have a formal request from the United Kingdom government.
This government's not interested. We've been to Brussels, we've talked with the commissioners, and they've said it requires direct action by a high-ranking government minister. And all they've done is send a couple of civil servants over, purely to make inquiries, by the way, not to ask for intervention funding.
Well, intervention funding is a pocket of money that's made available by the European Commission to basically subsidise the cost of building a merchant ship. It doesn't apply to building warships. It's only civil craft merchant vessels that attract a subsidy. And you get 9% of the total cost subsidised. So that means if you're in a very competitive market, which the merchant shipbuilding sector is, it's highly competitive, you do need that degree of subsidy to make sure you win the orders, because it's a worldwide market and you're competing against yards in the Far East and in America. So the 9% subsidy is very significant. The problem we've got at Swan Hunter is that it doesn't, under the existing rules, qualify for intervention funding, because when it was privatised as solely a warship building yard, and because of that it doesn't qualify for intervention funding. So what we're trying to do now in discussions with the European Commission is to get them to accept that Swan Hunter actually builds both types of ships, builds warships, also builds merchant vessels, which it does. And as a result of being a mixed yard, it should qualify for intervention funding.
Well, I think what you've got to see is that had it not been for the local community and the workforce at Swan Hunters and the trade unions, Swan Hunters, its demise would have taken place possibly on the 20th of May. And it's because of the trade union and the strength of the trade unions and the general public at large and the local MPs, the Labour MPs that is, you know, is the reason why Swan Hunters is still here 4 months on. And we intend to be here, you know, not only for 4 months on in future, we expect to be here for the next generation and the generation after that, as far as we're concerned.
I've never felt optimistic. I've always felt that there was a possibility that we may secure the future of shipbuilding. To do that, we do need some positive help from the government. And I have to say, I'm not saying this particularly in a party political sense, but the government just haven't responded in any positive way so far. Indeed, I think they've actually put hurdles in the way of Swan Hunter remaining open. So there are still opportunities, there are still objectives to be achieved, and there is still some hope. But I wouldn't say towards the end of October that I'm optimistic about the outcome.
This campaign's got to go on. It's got to go on, it's got to be supported by all those people in employment. Because 3 million people unemployed is a natural disgrace.
I'd like to think it would stay open, I'd like to think someone would buy it, but no one knows. I honestly think that is the case, that no one actually knows. Even the receivers haven't got a clue.